For example, we speak French at home, even so they tend to reply in English because it's just easier for them. But the other thing that we do, effectively, we send them to French school on Saturday morning for multiple reasons. One is that because they start replying to us in English when we spoke to them in French, like, great, let somebody else force you to speak French in some shape or form. The other reason is that they learn how to read and write in French. There is actually a third reason that now it's becoming as a nice side effect is that so as part of going to French school, they are able now to pass French exams, effectively that's certified by the government of France. Yeah, that prove their level in French. And the point of that is that if you get to a certain level, then it means that your French university will accept you, for example, without doing any language test because you already have that exam that proves your language level. At work, if you want to work in France, they're going to accept you as well. For us, that's a nice benefit. Like, not that they're thinking about studying in France, but at least now they could, give them opportunities. That is not something that initially we thought about when we first put them into French school. But now it's like, oh yeah, well, that was a good choice then, because now potentially it opens more doors for them, right? Just like you're having the two passports opens more doors for them. But we obviously traveled with them in France. All our families in France, so we want them to meet family. Although I think like there is a cultural aspect, and the cultural aspect they get in the French curriculum, I think that's a big part of the French identity, all about talking about French culture and French history and French geography, that they get exposed more to that as well. For me, it's important because you mentioned what does it mean to be French versus being American. I think that's a hard question. For me, being French is easier to answer because it's not just a passport. To be French, really, not only need to have the language, obviously. There is social norms that have a long history that come from the history of France. There is a cultural context, and if you don't understand that history, it's going to be very hard for you to have this proper social norms for you to be able to be seen as a French person, to be able to communicate and socialize in the French way. To some extent, French is very rooted in some aspects. Like there is a lot to learn for you to feel like, yes, I belong here. It comes also with challenges when people come to France from other countries, and it's very hard for them to assimilate. And I think that's one of the reasons for that, is that there is so much to learn in some dinner parties where you have to know about Charlemagne and Napoleon so that you can even have a normal discussion. Where in the US, for example, that's not really a thing. It's not that people don't care about history, but the history is shorter. The social norms, there are some, but they vary from state to state as well, and they are not, I will argue, not as strong or not as dictated based on history than France, in my opinion. That's my experience.